Welcome to the AI GovSec discussion series. I'm Aditya Chotia, an AI governance and security enthusiast. I've spent 13 plus years in the cybersecurity, IT risk and compliance space. This series exists because AI is moving faster than the governance frameworks meant to control it. Every week, I sit down with industry leads, with CISO security leaders, and everybody is worried. Everybody doesn't know what's coming. Hence, I've created this to actually understand and see what everybody is doing, what's working, what's not working when it comes to AI, governance, and security. No theory, just practical conversations about how organizations are navigating the gap between AI adoption and the controls needed to manage it. Whether you are a security leader trying to get ahead of the AI risk or a practitioner building in this space, this is for you. Let's get into it. Thanks a lot, Cynthia, for joining the AI GovSec discussion series. Really appreciate that you are taking out time to do this with us for the community. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure, Adi. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm really flattered. My name is Cynthia Dumuk. I've been working in cybersecurity and tech for, close to 40 or 30 years. Gosh, I'm not going to make myself older than I am. And I've worked in 84 countries, 5 industries, a handful of companies and jobs. I've worked in everything from the government and military to entertainment and everything in between. So you might call me a bit of a generalist. I don't think of myself as a specialist in any kind of a way.
Great background over there. And I think you've just summarized in sort of 1 or 2 sentences, but I'm sure there's like huge golden insights you have from that background. So let's get into it and sort of dive into the background and then probably start talking about it. So as you said, right, I think based on what I know about you, you went from West Point to leading communications in Iraq for NATO, doing cryptographic sort of operations for Afghanistan or in Afghanistan, building cyber sort of training simulations for the Secretary of Defense. How does all of that military experience shaped how you are approaching the latest problem we have is the whole AI security and governance?
Well, my fellow military individuals will probably agree. When you're in the military, your resume doesn't say I worked with XYZ technology. It says I do this job. And this job has hundreds of things that could be associated with it. And you are expected to learn. And if it's taught me one thing, it's to be adaptable. And I think that with the speed and variety of things that are moving right now, it has placed me well to adapt to learning yet a new technology.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing there is adapt is the sort of the underlying principle that doesn't matter what technology, doesn't matter what environment you're working, but adapt is the key word, I think, over here.
Absolutely. If you're not learning, you're being left behind. And it can be scary sometimes because things are moving so fast. But at the same time, it's so fascinating.
Absolutely. And I think then you spend sort of 5 years with Disney building their first enterprise security sort of architecture, managing probably 150,000 or 175,000 sort of employees, and pioneering the OT, the ICA sort of security for the right systems across Shanghai, Hong Kong. How does that experience build you like what you are today? So that's the first question. The second question is, how does securing a theme park, which is as big as Disney, right? What are the sort of themes you're drawing from there to right now, what role you're doing from an AI risk governance perspective?
Great questions. Well, for the first one, the sheer size and variety of things means that you have to be insatiably curious. You have to not assume that you know everything, because at a scale of that size, one person's never going to know everything. But you have to approach it with securing the basic things perfectly. If you get the basic things, if you pick 3 or 4 things that are absolutely essential and you get those perfect, The rest generally falls into place. And so taking that to the second question, in learning about what's important for, say, a physical theme park where physical security and the safety of someone's physical being are the number one aspects, right? The security focus there is going to be slightly different than the payment system, where the security is about your payment card. And then the online presence, where the security is the contents, and the movie presence, where the security is for the IP or the media itself. You learn to understand what the focus is, and that's your number one area to protect. That's your number one area to get right. And that's prepared me really well for everything afterwards, because you look at what's new, you look at what's coming, and you look at what's important. You don't have an infinite amount of energy. You don't have an infinite amount of resources. So you learn to understand what's important to the business, what's important from an industry perspective, and what's the moral and ethical thing that's important. You get those right. You ask for smart people to help you. You surround yourself with people smarter than yourself. You ask good questions, and you invest in those things. If you're going to focus your investments, you focus them on those 3 or 4 things.
Understood. And do you think, is this the playbook? If somebody's starting in that Disney role today, what you had, and sort of similar complexity, is this the playbook you would give it to him?
Yes. We go through a major paradigm shift in technology every decade or so. Think about where we were. You may not be old enough, but in the 90s, the internet was a toy. It wasn't a place where everybody was playing. Email was brand new. The idea of putting your credit card out there on the ether was ridiculous. Now we can't wait to not have money in our pockets. And so the principles were the same then. It's just what was important was different. Where our focus was slightly different. What we were protecting was slightly different. And tomorrow it'll be different again. But again, those questions will apply. Picking the 2 or 3 areas of focus will apply. Today, your identity is what you hold in your hands. Tomorrow, your identity will be completely digital. In fact, your physical being won't be a trusted object. That digital footprint will be more trusted than you. That will be a very different paradigm, but the same principles will apply.
And I think then you probably moved into your career, and I think you joined Coupa. You led sort of the team, building some AI-based threat detection and global response workflows. If whatever you can share, if you can share like what you did and what sort of benefits it brought to the team.
One of the biggest things that I've brought with me throughout my entire career is measuring the most important areas. Like I mentioned before, you pick the 2 or 3 critical areas for your business and your industry. Well, this is not unique to Coupa. I did it at Disney, I did it at Blackline, I did it in the military, and then I did it at Coupa. And what I did was I took the areas that were of the most importance from a security perspective and technology perspective, and I started measuring performance, growth, patterns. And you take a group of metrics, they could be 5, it could be 25. You figure out what you can measure. One of the things that we measured was our mean time to detect and our mean time to contain. Whatever you have, you measure, you look at it, you see patterns. And what I was noticing was at that place, and this is very typical for the first time you measure something, the mean time to detect and mean time to contain had some days behind it. And I wanted to shorten that time. So I really worked with the team, and I had some very good, very intelligent engineers working with me. I had them break down where the bottlenecks were. I had them break down what was difficult. Well, how long does it take for you to pull logs? How long does it take? And we timed it. We did some tabletop exercises, which were a little artificial, but then we looked into during incidents, I would sit in and watch. My incident commander would record And afterwards, we'd discuss. Every incident would have an after action. And what we did was we found there were a bunch of repetitive things. So one of my engineers took it upon himself to automate the playbooks. They had playbooks. They had it down to a pretty good science, but there were still manual steps that could be automated. So the first thing that he did was he did the precursor to SOAR. So Security Operations Automated Response. He took it upon himself to automate 10 of the most typical playbooks, and that reduced the time from dozens of days to under a week, which was an amazing win. And then we had the breakthrough of ChatGPT 3.5, and everyone started using it. And we did a hackathon internal to our team. The security operations team started experimenting with using pattern matching and LLMs to do an early warning system or an early detect system on the things that we had most often experienced. And we were able to reduce our time to detect and time to contain to an hour, less than 12 hours, certainly, but in most cases under an hour.
Right.
It was brilliant. It was
This
brilliant.
is a huge metric improvement, right? You have brought it down from a dozen of days, or maybe even more than that, to like within a week and then within hours.
Yeah, absolutely. AI can be a powerful tool. If you can see the patterns, if you can analyze the things that are right in front of you, and AI is a great tool for that because it can help you to see patterns by ingesting massive amounts of data and giving you good results. It's a very good data analytic tool. And even more. And the best part is you can speak plain English or plain whatever language you speak into the system, and it gives you an answer. Now, it may not be the exact same answer every time because it's interpreting, and that's one of the challenges with AI. But the benefit is you don't have to write hundreds of lines of code to start to see an answer, which is super valuable.
Yeah, this is really, really valuable. And if I may, from a use cases perspective, what were the typical low-hanging fruit that you captured in that whole life cycle of MTC, like mean time to contain and detect? Is it like, where did you sort of see AI's use case the best? Is it more in triaging? Is it more in enrichment, decision making?
Not decision making. The human still is the best, I would say, judger. That you don't want to, well, I do not prefer to use AI for judgment. I do enjoy using AI for pattern recognition. I think it is an amazing tool for early detection of pattern events. I think it's an excellent tool for pattern definition based on many, many pieces of evidence. So if you have an internal facing on-premise LLM that you use, and you point it at your entire log history and say, give me the top 5 threats based on typical attack vectors and typical indicators of compromise. What are the top 5 threats that we're seeing? This is great because it can help you to overcome selection bias, where you think you know what's going on and that's what you see. It's an effective tool for picking up those indicators of compromise. If you feed indicators of compromise into an AI-powered system, it can help you. Whereas before you're manually looking for the alerts and you're triaging the alerts, it can not only triage the alerts based on your input, but it can interpret them based on a range of acceptable or interpreted results. And a lot of the security tools have been feeding and iterating on the prompting and the automated detection. I would say agents that are helping you. That's become super powerful. And then another thing that we have used, I won't say we like Coupa because I can't speak to that anymore. I don't work there anymore. But we, as in teams that I've worked with over time, have used AI tools to do is go out and look for early warning. What's going on in the wild? What's going on the internet? What's going on in the news? It is not possible for a human being to read all of the news articles across the world, but AI can. And if you are in, say, banking, and you want to know about banking compromise that's happened anywhere in the world and then interpret it and break it down into indicators of compromise, AI can do that.
Mm.
You need to know what an indicator of compromise is. You need to still be a skilled practitioner because you will get garbage at first.
Mm.
But if you have the patience and you take the time, you can turn it into a powerful friend.
I think what you're talking there is really, really powerful in the sense that it's like AI is doing your entire threat detection end to end, right?
It is doing a vital piece of your threat detection. You're still doing the interpretation and you're still defining the parameters for the threat detection, but it's certainly speeding it up by orders of magnitude.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just out of curiosity, two questions at the back of this is, did you felt during implementation when this was running through, did AI ever got something wrong, maybe false positive,
All the
or
time. At first, this is the fallacy about AI replacing people. AI can make one person do the work of many. AI can certainly speed someone up. I would say, though, that you need someone to quality check. The very first several iterations were problematic.
Mhm.
AI has a few limitations, we'll say. It has many things that it does beautifully. One of the things that it doesn't do beautifully is recognize when it's getting it wrong. It will confidently tell you, "Oh, I saw this thing and it's an indicator of this thing." And then you'll tell them, "Well, no, that was actually normal behavior. You're right. That was normal behavior." It's not really good at self-policing. It's
Hmm.
not really good at quality checking the results because it's interpreted. So of course it got it as right as it could. AI is a tool that was made by people, and people are not perfect. So if
Hmm.
people are imperfect and people designed a system, that system is going to be imperfect. And so you have to take a look at the results. Now, where AI gets it right is where it's seen the same thing 100 times and you've told it good feedback 100 times.
Right.
So if you think back to how AI is trained, how artificial intelligence and machine learning actually works. Machine learning can be supervised, semi-supervised, or unsupervised. And when it's unsupervised, you're feeding in a bunch of data and it's iterating on that data. And you've given it parameters to recognize good. Unless
Hmm.
that data is absolutely pristine, it's going to make mistakes. It's going to reinforce those mistakes. And a human's not validating that. That's what's happening in some organizations that are completely removing their QA teams. They're having the code do the QA. There's no human in the loop, and that code's getting released. Sooner or later, someone's going to discover a big flaw. Because unless the code parameters were pristine going in, and I don't know a single team that isn't harassed for time. And I don't know a single team that has the time to make their code completely perfect before it goes into QA. QA catches a lot of things. So this is where AI has messed up. AI has messed up in the first few passes because it doesn't have any context. It messes up on new things. So you might be aiming an old and trusted playbook at a new attack. It's going to get some things wrong because it's going to be looking for a square and it gets something triangle shaped. And it's like, I have a square. Well, it follows all these other parameters. Yes, but it's a novel way to use it. So you have to guide AI in novel interpretations. So it messes up when it's brand new. It messes up when it sees something new. And it sometimes messes up when your thread, when you're on a current agent and a current thread or a current, say, incident, and it's going on for a long time. Because AI has this, many AI systems hallucinate after a while. They deviate from the original parameters because they continuously update their understanding. And their outputs are an average or an aggregate of the knowledge they've had in the entire thread. So what starts to happen is, say, I'll give you a real life example from something I'm working on. I'm also a crime writer. I'm writing a mystery story.
Right.
And I use AI to help me edit. And when I'm currently working on a book. It's 260 pages at this point. But I noticed that after a while, it forgets. the character names, it forgets their descriptions, it forgets the setting, it forgets what the plot that we designed originally, because we've been working on edits, and as you go, you make changes to dialogue, you make changes to the setting, and you don't exactly mention all of the original data again. So that's the third way that AI can give you false positives and false information, because it's been in a thread or in an event or doing a thing too long without completely refreshing the original rules. So you have to remember its limitations and work with them. If you can do that, it is an incredibly powerful ally.
My other question was that if you are doing the same thing again today, and what you know based on all the learnings you had doing automation or building some automation via AI, is there anything you would do differently?
No, I think we approached it with the understanding that it needed iteration. We approached it with the understanding that it would need QA. And we approached it with the understanding that we were working on the things that we could really use pattern recognition. So we used it to its strengths. And I would do that again. I wouldn't necessarily trust it out of the gate to give me 100% perfect results. And we didn't. I had a team of people who did their homework, and they educated me, and we educated each other as we went. And I'd do all that again. It was fun. Learning new tools and using new things that can make your life easier is fun inherently.
Just going back on that sort of Disney's experience, where you pioneered the ICS security systems for the Disney manufacturing lines and the show controls across Asia and other geographies as well. And we now see a lot of these ICS and OT systems, or these environments are being targeted more frequently. And some are starting to incorporate AI. Where do you see, from what you know about these, because I think you're the best person to answer this question, to be honest, where do you see the biggest AI-related risk in industrial and operational technology environments?
You have to understand that industrial technology is extremely variable. So unlike PCs, which have become almost homogeneous now, industrial control systems are everything from the camshaft in your car, the cam system in your car, to a light bulb, to a utility. And I'd say one of the biggest risks is the sheer variability. A person who's managing industrial control security has systems that have very different computing capabilities, different exposures to data flows outside of their environment, different impacts as far as what will fail and what will be affected when it fails. And it's that volume that becomes a challenge to the practitioner. Even with an AI agent on your side, you'd almost need an AI agent tuned to each and every different component because of just what I mentioned. Hallucination, if you give it multiple different things to specialize in, an AI system will fail. But today, if you say to the same system, the same agentic AI, I need you to make sure that this system is perfectly safe and this system is perfectly safe. And I'm using that as a big shortening of all the instructions you would give it to go look out for certain patterns. It's going to make mistakes. But an attacker AI can attack multiple systems because the points to detect are easier and simpler. Look at this range of IPs and find out if a port's open. Look at this range of IPs and see if anything's connected to the internet. Look at this range of IPs and attempt a no password manufacturer's password attack. You can do that across multiple systems, but when defending those same systems, there's a specificity that is needed in order to properly monitor, look for indicators of compromise, look for bad behaviors in the system. The threats and the results are very different. So to me, that's the biggest challenge, because the attacker only has to get it right once, but the defender has to get it perfect almost every time.
I think I agree, because what you mentioned about these industrial systems, the OT, the ICS systems, I think it's just like safety versus security for me. Like, because if in IT, typical sort of PCs, if anything goes wrong, it's
You just
easy to
unplug it.
find. But then if in these systems, and specifically the right systems, if anything goes wrong.
You can't. There are physical fail-safes that have to remain in place. Many utilities, right? Many utilities are the targets of these AI-driven or attacks in general, ransomware for hospitals, for example.
Mm,
The ICS systems have to fail in a way that they're still available and operating safely. Like you can't turn off a breathing machine just
mm,
because someone's hacking it. You have to find a way to bypass the inputs, but continue a steady state operation. If someone's on a roller coaster and someone physically hacks that roller coaster, you need to find a way for that roller coaster to fail and return the riders to a safe position. The defender has to anticipate how these systems can fail and create electronic or mechanical systems in industrial technology that at very least can, without input, move the system into a safe state. Many industrial systems, to the credit of the manufacturers, have been and continue to develop these practices. I know for a fact that at Disney, the ride and show teams are exceptionally skilled, and they already built in many of these safety fails before they connected all of the technology.
right.
Because safety is, when someone can die, the stakes are so high, people take these things into account. And that's one of the good things, is that the engineers that are working on these systems, they've been understanding risks to physical safety, to utility safety, long before connected systems, long before AI-driven systems, attacks, and defenses, long before networking even was a thing. And there are vulnerabilities, but I would say, in addition, you have capable men and women that have been working with systems that fail and making them fail safe for a long time.
And just your perspective that right now, the people who are dealing with these sort of systems, right, the industrial systems and the operational technologies, and I think it is happening already with the utilities and sort of water companies and electric companies, where AI is being pumped in right, left, and center into these systems, right? What is the risk you see with, rather than, because I know that some of these, they are moving slightly away from just pattern recognition and just doing the analytics or predictive analytics with AI, but they are doing some of the operational and decision making with these AI agents. And what would be your advice to them?
Well, there's a temptation. The temptation is, well, humans make mistakes, get the human out of the loop. That's a temptation. It's very tempting, especially if you look at someone who's overwhelmed, tired. People are expensive. At least in the Western world, people are your most expensive thing you invest in. And you're already seeing it. You're already seeing people like marketing individuals and recruiters and HR and QA is the big one, and developers being moved out of the loop. And that's the temptation, but it's also a huge risk. I would say to CEOs, consider that you still need someone to check the work, that you still need someone to generate the creative spark, that you still need someone to educate the system, that you still need someone to work alongside with the system to ensure that it doesn't drift. You still need experts. You still even need junior members to learn the systems and keep them in good health. You will not ever be human out of the loop, at least not in the foreseeable next 5 years. So don't be so eager to make closed AI decision systems. That's the risk. When you completely remove the non-rational person, the non-rational creature from the loop, you need slightly irrational beings to anticipate novel things, to understand when things don't hit the pattern, to understand when the pattern is wrong. You need critical thinking members of the team. And it is a team. You need the AI that can recognize things quickly. You need automation to speed up the mundane tasks. You need the human to notice the things that aren't, the things that aren't outliers, the new patterns, the things that are not seen before, to understand the new technology and then to interpret it and then iterate with the AI partner. It should be a partnership and not a replacement.
No, I'm with you, and this resonates with me so much that every time I hear somebody talking that AI agent's gonna just replace the whole security function team, it will be just one CISO and 5 AI agents. I'm like, no, like you're in for a surprise.
Well, they keep thinking, I know I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything. I can tell you through my entire history, every job I've ever gotten, I've had to learn a new technology, which means I didn't know it going in. I knew all the principles, I knew similar technologies, but there's always a learning curve. Even if you're working in the same technology on a new team, there's a learning curve. And there are people on the team that know more than you. You know more than them on some things, they know more than you on the other things. And it's that diversity on the team and different thinking, different backgrounds, different ways of problem solving that really make a team resilient and make you able to respond and adapt to emerging situations. That to me is the biggest thing that's under threat. When you say, I'll just have 5 agents. Well, that's like saying I'm going to have 5 copies of the same person and this other person that doesn't know everything, making sure that these 5 copies of the same person do everything right. That's not possible. And it doesn't matter how good a system gets. If you only have that system, you still have a gap.
I think this is really, really powerful, what you said over there, like copies of the same person. And yeah, it's a different perspective, but 100% correct that it's what the 5 AI agents will be. I think just moving slightly on, you are one of the most human-centric CISO I am having on this podcast. I will put it that way. Because based on what I've read about you, the publications that you have done, the leadership material which you have done, I know you have written the 90% of what you do is sort of listen to the colleagues, and then 10% is what unicorns. I think you have achieved the least turnover in your career, like team turnover, so 3 to 5% versus the industry. I think average would be probably 10 to 16, 20%-ish. When AI is changing all of this, when AI is getting into the teams, and obviously the FTE is getting more reduced and reduced, automating SOC, as we discussed, replacing analyst work, how do you, in your existing environment or in your future environment or advising anybody, how a CISO should lead his team? How should he put that confidence in his team that they wouldn't be written off?
I think the number one thing is don't write them off. Your use of AI helps you to grow thoughtfully. Every person on my team played a vital role. They still do. Even when I move on from a team, my whole job is to make myself obsolete. I arm my team with the strategy. The thing I bring is the vision. I train them, I cross-train them, I drill them, I measure, I show them the path. And once they're on the path, they can operate on that path, and they understand a way to consider, good questions to ask. That doesn't change with the advent of AI. It just creates a more thoughtful growing pattern. So instead of adding a person every time you hit complexity, you see what your tools and your people can do together. And maybe you don't grow as fast, but maybe when you do grow, you bring a new person on so that they can understand and learn all of this technology, and you've created another expert engineer in 3 or 4 years. But that engineer has become a native with AI agents. They've worked alongside with those agents for the whole time. So you bring on an expert that knows technology, that knows security, that knows whatever the heck the skill is you need. I would not get rid of my team members, and I would give them the security in knowing that AI was a partner, it was an assistant, it was a tool, but it's not a replacement. And that, yes, we will eventually need to include more humans on the team, but perhaps those humans will be half of the humans that we would have gotten before. Maybe a third, maybe a half, who knows? But there still will be a need for a team that is, again, diverse. I need my people. I need my expert systems. I think they work beautifully together. I think they work brokenly apart.
Mm, mm. And I think one of the probing questions just on the back of it, because I think you did mention that the training word, right? So, because what I'm seeing right now is obviously in the security teams, the people who were running, let's say, SOC operations, triage, or all vulnerability scannings. Now, obviously, AI is doing some of that. So what they were doing, or the job tasks which they were doing, that tasks have been really just taken off by 50%, which is AI is now doing. For the remainder 50%, which is now sort of they're not doing anything, how would you retrain them for the other tasks in their mindset? Because they have been trained to do from 10 years, 8 years, 12 years, the same thing again and again. How would you retrain them?
In technology, you know this, things change so quickly that if you're not learning something new every year or two, then
Mm,
you're falling behind. So my teams already know that they have to learn new skills every year or two. This is just a reframing of that mentality. So sure, AI is taking some of the mundane tasks that they used to do, but the
mm,
car took over for the horse, and the highway took over for the train, and modern computing took over from previous typing and data entry. These things have happened over time. And what happens?
mm,
You understand that the new skill comes with training. You have to learn and again adapt. This word adapt, it's coming back. It's a terrible word. It's a wonderful word, but it's true. My teams and any team that I would give advice to, the advice is the only givens are death and taxes. Everything else requires adaptation. We are going to learn together. The skills that you bring are not going to remain the same over time, but the knowledge that you bring will enrich everything that you do. So
mm,
sure, AI is going to take over the staring at the alerts, but that's a job you want them to take over. You want AI to do that job because now you can ask harder questions and now you are free to explore those harder answers. And I think that's where you're really going to develop people's minds and talents.
I think they need to, yeah, adapt again, I would say is the word there, but then sort of look around the corner, think out of the box what you were doing, think more broader, higher level, and you don't want to do that typical data parsing job which AI is taking over. So
If you
agree.
have 5 years of experience, right, the first 3 years are staring at a machine.
Hmm.
Now you don't have to spend 3 years staring at a machine. Now your first 3 years are understanding how to interpret results, understanding how to look at patterns, understanding how to look at outliers. You actually have built in a mechanism to develop critical thinking.
Hmm.
That's amazing. Critical thinking is one of the most valuable skills in tech, especially in security operations.
Hmm. No, aligned with that.
Oh, well, absolutely. I
Right.
keep thinking too, when you think about how we build skills, right?
Hmm.
Adversaries. So think about the underground, the Silk Road of the world, and the the gray net. I won't say the dark net, but I'll say the gray net. So it's that space where you have kids that are curious, or you have people who are solving problems. Maybe they're going to an office that's much like the ones that we go to. They drive a better car than I do, I promise. They do crime. But you know what they do really well? They share information really well. They
Hmm.
share opportunities really well. They refer each other to positions. The competition isn't about getting the skill, it's about using the skill. And what we do on the light side, or the, say, defender side, is we protect ourselves behind these certifications that cost thousands of dollars. We protect jobs until you have a long laundry list of skills that are specific to the technology. We don't look at adjacent skills. And I want to change that one job at a time. I
Hmm.
also believe that our community in tech is better when we assist each other, when we truly build community. So every person that gets laid off, that I can review a resume, have a conversation, help to introduce them to a skill where they can benefit the team, and the team can benefit them, I'm improving our ability to defend.
I think this is really right mindset. It's improving our guards, basically. How the more people you have, the more guards you have. And yeah, I think this is amazing thought process. I hope all of the security community leaders think like that so that everybody can be trained and get a job in this area.
There are many jobs out there. I keep seeing positions open. The wonderful thing about humans is how they overcome, how resilient that we are, and how adaptable that we can be. I see a lot of new startups. AI security is a huge field. AI design is a huge field. I have been blessed to be a partner to several startups to help them with the problem that they want to solve and refining that problem. And so with all of these jobs that are opening, the skills are adapting. The people who have the jobs don't necessarily know the exact skills that will be a great fit. And the people with skills, they don't exactly know what jobs are a good fit because the traditional jobs are no longer really the thing that they need to go for. Like if you're a recruiter and there's a recruiter job open, there's like 600 applicants for that because of AI recruiting taking over for a lot of the lower level recruiters. But if you're a recruiter, you already understand project management. You already understand sales because you're selling a job to a person or you're selling a person to a job. It's understanding those adjacent things that your list of skills can fit. And so one of the things that I'm learning to do is look not just at the title, but at what you did with the position. Like, what did you do? What were you proud of? What was the thing you loved doing the most? And then seeing how that fits into the new emerging skills, the new emerging jobs, the new emerging titles, and maybe making a match that really fits.
I think what I heard there is transferability of skills is key. And yeah, I think it's just amazing how you're doing that. I know you have also written about the wider supply chain trust and the validity of the certificates and importance of validating sort of certificates. I know one of your posts was around that even something is signed, it doesn't mean it's safe, referencing some of the hard crypt packaged ransomware. How does this apply to the whole AI model supply chain? I think in the last few weeks, we've seen all the attacks on the model itself, the LLM and those. So how does all of this impact the whole supply chain process with the AI coming in?
That's a huge one. And I can honestly say this is one of the hardest problems because many of us came up saying you go to a trusted provider, you download your new version or your thing, whatever it is, you get your tech from a trusted provider, and you know that they're doing what's necessary to protect you. With AI taking over for quality checking, with AI taking over for manufacturing, with all of these things removing a person from the loop, you're getting further and further and further away from firsthand knowledge of what goes into it. What we used to do when we didn't trust anything is we would take one apart. If you got a physical thing, we'd take it apart and we'd understand what all the components did. And lo and behold, we'd find stuff in there that really it wasn't needed to do what we needed to do. And it was doing stuff we really didn't want it to do. And if we found it in one random thing that we tested, well, you could guarantee it's in others. And so that told us the thing about what we could and couldn't trust. Now, we trusted the manufacturer was giving us what we needed, but we also trusted that the manufacturer was probably serving a lot of other customers too. If you look at some of the biggest, most dangerous attacks recently, it was from trusted sites downloading what was supposed to be a trusted software update. Again, what we used to do is we used to call the manufacturer or look for the hash that was expected when that hash was updated, and then compare the hash for the thing that we downloaded. I don't know if that's even trustworthy at this point because an attacker could change the hash value and say, here's the trusted hash. So I think the thing is trust but verify. Like that's a silly term, but it's a very old term. The first time that you download anything, the first time that you see any tech, test it, run it in a sandbox, see what it does, like understand what it does. Stick a Wireshark on it, see if it's calling home somewhere. It's going to be a little more time consuming, but you can even set AI on this task
Mhm.
and make it faster. But I think now more than ever, it's important to take a second, take a breath, dress carefully when you're in a hurry. You take a few seconds, especially when you are in a hurry, to do it carefully.
Mhm. Now I can imagine, yeah, like you at that when you're in a hurry, you have to take a pause and see what you're doing.
I think it can save us from a lot of pain.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And this is also applies when you are angry on something. You've seen something, you're just about to do an action, a response to an email. Just take a moment.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
Just take one breath. Read that email carefully. Did you really buy a thing from that place? You know, it doesn't take you any effort to just call them and say, hey, did I do this? It can help in so many aspects of our life, but especially now with AI and everything speeding up, everything coming at you from many directions, and so many terms that are new. I was listening to colleagues that I respect talk about new technologies, and I only knew one of the dozen that they were talking about, because in the space of a few months where I've been focusing on industrial security, AI security, I missed out on 12 new tools for network security because I wasn't focused on network security. It behooves you to take that breath. It behooves you to understand what you're working with. Do not blindly trust anything anymore, as if you ever really should.
And I think what you're saying over there was similar principle apply to the legacy, the patch management process. If you're downloading an update to, let's say, an LLM, or if you're downloading anything, just test it out in Sandbox and check whether everything is okay. And
take the time to test it. If you're getting a download every 2 weeks, at least take a day. If you're getting a download every day, at least take an hour. Like, give yourself 10% time and do a systematic check. It doesn't hurt you to do it. And in fact, you might learn something about the new features of the tool. Read the notes, read the update notes. Have someone on your team, give them the time, give them the space. Protect that person's time to test, protect that person's space to test, protect that person's education to test. The best person on your team should be one of your testers.
Moving on to the final section. So, two sections. One is I'll ask you, looking ahead, sort of two questions, and then I'll ask you a question. So we have a tradition where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest. So Ira Winkler was the previous guest, and I think he didn't left a question for the next guest. So it was my duty to put a question, right? So the question you're going to get is from me. And then you will have the opportunity to leave a question for the next guest. The question could be anything around in the AI governance security space. You have the most diverse background because you have operated in military, you have operated in sort of entertainment, you have operated across government, SaaS. Looking ahead, 12 to 24 months, if a CISO peer is sitting across to you, what are the two things you will tell him to watch out?
The first one is the digital identity of all of the things, because again, things are moving so quickly that identity and access is going from a zero trust to a trust AI. So be careful how you implement closed loop trust, and be meticulous about identifying people and objects. So people also being agents and objects being the things that they're accessing, whether it's a system, a network, an application, etc. Invest in education and protect the time of your human in the loop. 70%, this is not me, this is a reported number in quite a few articles now. 70% of teams don't believe that their AI use is trained. So 90% of CEOs that were asked think that AI is transformational, and 70% of teams don't believe that their engineers are trained. Those numbers are powerful, they're important, and I would tell anybody, CISO, CEO, CTO, train your people, protect their time, invest in that training.
Got it. The last one was really powerful, I would say. Yeah, I would agree. I haven't met or seen people who are at the same time appreciating the technology and trying to implement it as fast as they can, but then training the teams, training the people who are dealing with it day to day on how to use it. So from his perspective, he said that one of the white space, one of the area is like for CFOs or for COOs, you have a lot of data science, data analytics to help them make the decision, like what's important for the next 6 months, what's important for the next 12 months, can go wrong in the next 6 months or so. But for a CISO, you don't have that much data science predictions, looking at all the things which a CISO does. Mainly it is dependent on 5 to 7 team members, the leads, how much gut feel they feel about certain things, and whoever has the right business case prepped up, whoever speaks nicely, he wins the budget for the next 24 months or 12 months. So do you agree with this white space? Or do you think there is anything else where a bigger problem is emerging where nobody's looking out?
Actually, I think that it's a little naive for CISOs to be uneducated in business. Every CISO needs to have some sort of business education, whether informal or formal. Like, for example, I have an MBA. I think that CISOs need to ride the line between a business executive and a technology engineer or practitioner or former practitioner, because you don't have the time to be the best engineer in the room, and you shouldn't. I think that's a gap in the CISO's development. I think from a professional development side, all of the most successful CISOs that I know have a business education, not necessarily a degree. You don't have to invest $180,000, God help me, in that. But learn the business, learn from the CFO, learn from the CEO. Many CEOs will mentor you if you ask them, especially if you're working directly for them and you're representing their interests. And I learned from several CFOs. To me, that was a huge opportunity, because business finance is not math, it's magic. And you have to learn from the magicians. But once you do, financial modeling is a great analogy for security modeling. You can understand how forecasting works. You can understand how technology forecasting works. The finance team has to be able to anticipate where the company is going. If you can understand what they do, or at least become knowledgeable on how they're thinking, I think the real white space is people and technology investment. A lot of times what happens is the business that you work for isn't a security business. It's a something else business, whatever that else is, whether it's supply chain, finance, you name it. Like 99% of businesses are not a security business. And even the security business, the security internally is not the thing they're investing in. It's the product that they're selling or the services that they're selling. So the real white space, honestly, is CISOs being better at modeling what they need and taking into account the combination, not just of people, but of people and AI and training. The traditional is people, process, and technology, but it's really people, technology, and training. Because when you say as a CISO to the CEO and CFO, I need 10 more people. You want to grow 100% next year. No CEO in their right mind is going to not question that. Because they don't have any context. And if you say, well, there's this threat and this threat and this threat out there, and we can't detect them, the CEO is going to say, well, we haven't been breached. We haven't had a problem. There's no, you haven't connected the dots. So the white space, again, goes back to business training. If you understand, for example, that say your Acme tools And in 5 years, you want to grow and take over 12% of the market. You're not huge, but you want 12% of the market for like hammers or something. You want 12% of the market. You make this revolutionary thing. As a CISO, you should know that. And you need to be able to tie what you need to the risk that's inherent to that growth. Like the market we're entering, that 12% that you want to capture is largely invested in, kazoos. Well, the emerging supply chain attack is ruining the kazoo supply chain. In fact, NVIDIA makes the only kazoos on the market that are worth anything, and we're heavily invested. And right now, I don't have anybody on my team that's familiar with kazoo supply chain attacks. So either I need to invest in cross-training the team, and I need to bring 2 people online, because as soon as I send all these people out to get an education, I'm going to be gapped. And 5 years ago, your footprint was 90% smaller. So now each person's responsibility is increased by 300%. CEOs understand that. Now, as a CEO, wouldn't you want to listen a little more to why that 10 people is a need?
This is completely transforming how a CISO would speak. Yeah.
And it's vital because the CEO trusts the CISO to know security. But the CISO has to also understand that the CEO is not doing security 100% of their time. So they have to learn to translate.
Got you. And you said the white space is
Understanding the threats inherent with that journey. That's the white space. Modeling and I have a background in modeling and simulation, so maybe I'm a little biased here. But I have never gone wrong modeling the business and simulating the threats that could affect that business, being aware of the things that are emerging, doing my homework on the emerging technologies that would feed into or refute that hypothesis, and then present those findings to the leaders of the company in order for them to anticipate my needs and me to anticipate theirs. You get the Brembo brakes on the F1 to make it go faster.
Yeah. No, I think it now resonates and I'm aligned. This is like not at all changing from an AI perspective. It's much more easier to build something with AI, but this is like, it's a need of every time that you need something like this. Now it's your turn to give me a question which I can ask to the next guest.
My question is, how are you modeling the skills and tools that your teams will need to get the most out of them for the next 5 years? Understanding that I have a 3% turnover on my teams. It's not only because they're good people, because they are. It's also because they are vital parts of the overall model. And they grow and they adapt and they get trained and they get cross-trained. I'm nothing like what I was 10 years ago. They're nothing like what they were 10 years ago, because we all grow together. So how are you as a CISO, or how are you as a security practitioner or a tech practitioner looking at your teams and modeling their growth, training, and needs for the next 5 years to keep them? How are you keeping your team members for the next 5 years?
This is really open-ended and interesting question. I would love to listen to the answer.
I guess you will.
But perfect. I think this is where we end the podcast. Thanks a lot, Cynthia, for sharing those insights with us. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you, Adi. I had a lot of fun. This was a blast. Thank you for having me.